Hey guys, this is Julian of Julian Gray Media, Gradient Collective, and many other things these days. Probably taking on too many things, to be honest with you. But today we are taking on the Patreon Fix Your Project live stream that I do every month for all my supporters over on Patreon. Go over to patreon.com/JulianGray if you're curious and want to learn how you can submit your songs for the next Fix Your Project stream. So today we have, I think, 5 projects. Yes, 5 projects to review today on today's stream. Excited to dive into these projects. We're probably going to spend about 20 minutes on each project and see where that gets us. We always have an amazing community of people submitting songs to these streams, and I'm very happy that people let me have the honor of dissecting and fixing their songs. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and move on to the first song of the day. So let's go ahead and start with Acid Trip by Storm. This is our first record of the day. And I'm just going to go ahead and open this in Ableton 10. And if it doesn't open in 10, then we'll open it in 11. I always do this so that we can prevent, upgrading project files if somebody submits a 11 project or a 10 project. I don't want to forcefully upgrade it to 11 if they don't have 11. So I always open it in 10 first and then 11. I think it's a good strategy. Ableton Live producer, hey Julian from Ireland. Welcome to the stream. We got Storm on YouTube. I do create in 11, so we will open it in Live 11. No problem. Here we go. DJ Sean Thomas? I can't read that. Sean Thomas on Twitch says, yo, what's up, brother? Good to see you, buddy. All right, we're going to dive into this thing today and check this thing out. So starting things off, this is Acid Trip by Storm with a 0. He's a regular submitter to these streams, so I'm assuming this will be pretty nice. Hopefully today's stream will go off without a hitch. As I say that, the audio cuts. Maybe I'm missing a plugin. I think I might be. Yep. Go ahead and disable that because it keeps giving me issues. Hello. I don't know how you pronounce your name, but welcome from Russia. So far, really enjoying this song. Sorry that your mastering is not working. Turn down the song a little bit relative to my voice. Let me know if the balance is good. Should be. Really solid ideas to this one. I have a few things that I think we can improve. Just got Ableton 10 last year and haven't used it. Use it. It's always worth giving it a shot. Yeah, the ozone makes a big difference. I just don't have it. Your version of it, I guess, the Elements 9. Zenstein, how's it going? Doing well. We're reviewing this record today. Can't use this plugin here apparently because it keeps cutting the audio out. It's okay though. We'll use Maximizer on its own, and I think we'll get a similar effect. This is a big issue I have with Isotope, is that they have all of their plugins in two formats, like the group, and then they have like the main one. And whenever I work in one or the other, it doesn't translate if somebody doesn't have the individual plugins or the full group. So annoying. I'm just gonna give us some limiting so we can hear with that. Matching your settings here. All right, so I'm really enjoying this concept. I think that it's got really awesome melodic ideas to it. I think one of my bigger critiques is that the lower mid, like the bass sound, is not coming through as strongly as it should. I want to address that first and foremost. Storm says, all good. Sorry, I must have read the plugins list wrong. No, it's not your fault. It's entirely the fault of Isotope. For some reason, they feel the need to separate the plugins into their own and have their individual one. It's a whole thing. That's fine. Somebody says, how did you make that voice? And I think, Storm, you could answer that better than I could. But I think that the first thing I want to address is the low end. So I want to check and make sure our kick and bass are sounding really nice and full. There's a certain like emptiness to this bass, I think, that we could potentially improve upon. So immediately, this bass is nice and chuggy. I like how it's subdued. I just feel as though the sub is a little bit too quiet. So I'm going to pull this up like 2 or 3 decibels. I also feel like the sidechain might not be tight enough. So if we shorten the attack on that, see how much of a difference that makes as far as like making the sub feel like punchy. I don't know if you're utilizing like something like a sub pack or a sub itself, but on actual like low end hardware, that's going to feel a lot better if you tighten up the side chain. So I'm making it immediate, so as soon as it hears the kick, it's really ducking under, and you get that really quick movement envelope. I also want to make sure that we're not listening for the entire kick, but mostly the top of the kick. Really get the transient shorter so we get more of the kick coming through. And that allows us to just adjust the release time of the kick so we can actually add a little bit more release time to compensate. This just gives us more freedom to adjust the length of the sidechain. If you guys are interested in a full sidechain video, let me know, because this is something that I've been meaning to cover for a while. I'm going to pull that threshold down a little bit more, shorten up the release a little bit more. And now we have that super tight back and forth between the kick and the bass. So let's go ahead and look at this on span now with these two things soloed. I want to see what kind of frequency range we're dealing with. So you obviously have a lot of this sub energy here at like 40 to 100 hertz. We don't have a whole lot in the 100 to 300 department, maybe 100 to 400 department, which is where your audible bass sits. So that's like where you actually hear bass rather than feel. You may have another element in here that does that, but it doesn't appear like that. So what I would say is maybe add in a second layer to this that sits in that octave just so you have some fullness to the bass. What we can do temporarily as a example here is maybe I'll take this exact same bass sound This is not like a fix as much as it is like a workaround. What I would do is maybe warp and then try this like 12 semitones up. See how like just adding, if we actually look at this on a on the span that we had open earlier, that's contributing like 80 to 400, like these harmonics here, that we were lacking in the sub version of that. So just adding that, you know, creates so much fullness to the record. Now, I mean, this is a really quick and dirty solution, and I wouldn't recommend using this in the final record just because warping a bass sound up 12 semitones is going to be really artifacty. I mean, you could probably disguise it with some distortion or something, but generally you want to generate that. I see that you've used a loop for your bass sound, so I definitely want to keep the exact same pattern, and you probably do as well. So, you know, rather than trying to recreate this, we can try the method of trying to disguise some of that artifactiness. What I can do to do that is maybe some distortion. Let's put the sidechain afterwards. We have DS Ridge in the chat on YouTube. Welcome. Dustin Rosada on YouTube. Welcome. And shout out to all my Twitch viewers as well. I don't know if anybody's actually watching, but we're broadcasting simultaneously to Twitch and YouTube. So I'm going to make sure that we're only grabbing that fundamental on this bass so it's not clouding up the sub. We can put this before the distortion so it's not going into the distortion at all. Yep, and there you go. So it's feeling nice and full now. Compare that to this. You know, that's really nice in the bottom end, but it doesn't have any mid. That adds a lot of mid and interesting character to the song. Maybe we can turn this down so that this is not our predominant voice, because it was the loudest voice a moment ago because of the distortion. I want the sub to remain the loudest voice so that we can maintain that harmonic structure beneath. Like your loudest harmonic is always the sub, or like the lowest one. So yeah, I want to make sure this is the loudest one, and then this is quieter than our sub. E that cha 5, F that cha 5, sup over on Twitch. How you doing? All right, let's bring that in with our kick and see how that sounds. It's a little bit much. I'm gonna pull that back even more. Compared to this, we really need to pull this down so it's not overbearing. And then maybe to alleviate a little bit more of that artifact sound of transposing this sample, we can switch it to Complex Pro and try some different format and envelope algorithmic things. Actually, that sounds pretty decent as it is. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Can't be mad at that. First click, it works. Sounds good. So I do think that the kick drum might be a little bit on the weak side. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So in my opinion, the kick should have a little bit more low end, like down here. It might be the key of the kick that you're using as well. It's not contributing that sub that we might, you know, want. Do something along these lines to elevate it slightly, but that's only going to get us so far. It's more of a sample problem. You also have a lot of click up here. Maybe we can pull that down just slightly. A little bit off in the mids can really make it feel less boxy as well. You have this like certain like, see how that like makes it feel weighted and less boxy when you pull some mids down? Do that to a lot of my kicks. That might be a little too much, maybe something like that. if you listen sonically at this, that's where a lot of that boxy tone is, like the dun, dun. Just pull that down, you know. To me, that sounds better. Yeah, that's kind of neat. So if we get rid of that, that's what it was. Again, this is all subjective stuff, and you can disregard any of my advice if you think that it's ridiculous. I just feel as though it sounds fuller when you have that bass octave, and the kick feels a little bit stronger now. Maybe we can pull out this. So you're focused less on the fifth, which is a little bit cheesy. You know, like if you have that fifth in there, pull it out, and you still maintain that low mid, but you don't have that like cheesy second harmonic in there that feels like, you know, the chord. And it depends on what you're trying to do, you know. So the next thing I want to check is I want to check on our master limiter here and make sure that our kick is hitting louder than our bass is. Now that we've done all that work on the bass, I want to make sure that the bass is still quieter than the kick. And we can do that just by soloing these and looking at our master limiter. Now, Ozone is decent for this, but I quite like Pro L. For its optics, it has a really good way of visualizing volume over time, which I think is really nice. So bigger diagram, more fluid and faster refresh. So we're coming in pretty hot here. I'm going to disable Ozone. Let's go ahead and solo the kick. So our kick's coming in at like 0, which is good. That's generally where you want to kick. Let's go ahead and check out our basses. So our basses are coming in, you know, at -3 to negative probably 1, maybe 0. So I want to tame that second harmonic. So it's this one. That one's jumping a bit up and down with every note. If you look at the way it works, you can kind of see that every other note is louder, especially when it's compiled with the sub like that. So what I'll do is I'll actually group these basses together, and we'll call this bass. And what we'll do is we'll throw a limiter on it. You could also use a clipper for this, which I've been using a lot lately, but I just want to make sure that we're summing those down and there's not as many dynamics here. So you can see that movement there. Let's go ahead and see what happens if we... Actually, for the sake of visualizing, I'll put this on the bass group so we can keep it there and we can see what happens when we adjust the limiter. Let's pull the ceiling down a bit. We can reduce the gain a bit. And we don't want it to flatline as hard, but we want it to be a gentle flat, just to make sure that the dynamics are all kind of the same. So it's a little bit too low. Let's give it like a half a decibel back. So yeah, now we're all of our basses are hitting at the same volume. If we play that with the kick, it will be a little bit more consistent. Let's see what it sounds like without it. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, we don't necessarily need Pro L for that, but it's just a very good way of looking at your volume over time. There's probably other utilities for it. So that's the main things I wanted to address was the kick and the bass relationship. Let's go ahead and quickly go through some of the other synths too to make sure that those are nice and balanced as well. And then we'll call this track a wrap. So this one feels a little bit on the loud side to me. I would pull this back slightly. So I notice you're doing a volume automation on the channel, so we're gonna have to use an accessory like utility to try to pull this down. I'm gonna pull it down to like 3. I would actually encourage you to do automation here instead of here so that you can actually have the freedom to move this fader whenever you want.
Would you wait for me? Would you wait for me?
DS Ridge asks if you could use a soft clipper instead of a limiter to achieve the same thing. Yeah, actually, I've actually been doing that in my newer material. There's this plugin called G-Clip that's free. And you can use this to achieve a very similar thing. It's just instead of compressing, you're actually just cutting the top off. So, for example, you can see the line there. If we pull the clip down to the line, set oversampling on, and then soft clip slightly. If we bring that Pro L back, see it's achieving more or less the same thing. We can adjust this obviously to achieve a similar result. It's just sonically whether or not you like the compression or you want to use a clipper. I'll leave it in there just so you have it, Storm. But yeah, you can absolutely use clipping in the same regard as you would a limiter. And yeah, it's kind of like a new frontier of audio. A lot of bigger artists are doing it right now, using clippers instead of limiters, because limiters have a adverse effect on like the sonics of the sound, because it's inherently a dynamic shaping tool. It's not for, you know, completely obliterating your volume, whereas a clipper disregards, you know, trying to maintain any sort of balance in the sonics. It's more just like cutting the top off the top of everything. So whether or not that's morally okay with you, that's the other question. So yeah, just to wrap this up, I wanted to turn that lead down a little bit, and I want to turn up the rest of your percussion. So maybe a good solution to this would be to pull your kick out of the percussion group. I generally don't group my kick into the percussion anyhow, because it's a very separate thing. Your other percussion kind of all sums together into like this high, what they call a top loop, like claps, snares, hi-hats, percussion. They can all be more or less summed together. Sometimes I'll separate my claps as well, or my snares, but they're all sonically in a very similar spot. They're very high favoring, they're very sharp, and you always want to kind of put those together. Your kick, on the other hand, is a very different animal, so I always separate my kicks. So if we grab an EQ here, just to give the percussion a little bit more bite, I'm going to give like maybe 2 or 3 decibels of gain boost above like 1K, so we have a little bit more sharpness and clarity. So that one element in particular feels really loud now. It's that one. So I'm going to pull that down like 2 decibels. This one feels quiet. I see that you've pulled it up like a lot in your fader. What I would do is just use a utility and gain it up. Again, I try to keep my faders below 0 and then not automating, so that I can actually have the freedom to move them. When you're running up on the ceiling here, like if you're pushing and you're like at +6 and it's still not loud enough, that's an indicator that you should probably do something up chain to turn it up. Okay. That clap is very high passed. I think it might just be the sample, but it does not have a lot of weight down here at all, which I think you might need. Is there like a, no? Yeah, you're kind of lacking down here. Like Like maybe even just a little boost would help. But it might be best to use a different sample for that. So yeah. So it's still feeling a little loud relative to the rest. I can probably work on this for a very long time, but I'm going to use restraint and move on to the next one after this. I'm going to turn this up a little bit. Let's go ahead and bring that lead up a little bit more now that I've turned the percussion up as well. Alternatively, maybe we can leave the lead where it was and add some like reverb or something that would really push this into the space a bit more. Like, let's do oh, they must have just updated reverb. This is new. Because there was a quality thing and all of that. I have not messed with the new reverb. But at any rate. Like what I would suggest is something like this, where you have like a really nice room. Like put your compressor after that. Maybe like a delay before the reverb too, so like if I can do it. Nice. That was weird. It just like added every plugin. That was weird. I've never seen it do that. Okay, well, at least we got our delay. Yeah, adds a little bit of stereo depth. I think that's pretty cool. Well, great tune, man. I think this is a really solid start to a record. It has a really cool melodic idea. I hope that some of the adjustments to the bass and the kick and the other percussion really helped push the record along, and I hope you enjoy what I did to it. Consider that fixed. And everybody give a round of applause to Storm. That was a pretty cool little tune to start off the day. All right, so we finished Storm. Let's create a finished folder here. Next up, we have Chrono Trigger Fields of Time. Now I'm going to pull this into Live 10, see if that works. If it doesn't, then we'll open it in Live 11. Again, I don't like to forcefully update people's projects. So let's see if this goes. Also, I've noticed the sun has come out behind me. And it is, in fact, this beautiful radiant bloom behind my head. All right, Diaz Ridge. Nice work, Storm. Yeah, everybody. Great job. To anybody who's tuned in today, it's a little too late to submit your project file, but we do have a Patreon meetup call for all of the Patreon supporting the channel over on Discord today at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So that's in a few hours. If you're interested in that, you can go over to patreon.com/JulianGray, sign up, and discord.gg/JulianGray, and check out the meetup later today. All right, so this is Chrono Trigger Fields of Time. And let me make sure the audio is going. That would be important. Always a constant problem, this. I have to constantly switch back and forth. All right, here we go. it might be better if I pull this over a bit. Like that. So this one, mix is sounding great. Oh, cool little modal shift there on the music side of it. Love the balance. Your kick is up in the front. Your bass is well mixed. Oh. Like I said, always an issue. All right, let's restart that. Sorry, I didn't realize I couldn't hear. You guys couldn't hear that. It's always a problem switching between Ableton versions. Let's go ahead and start this thing over. Like I was saying before, really awesome groove. The mix is nice. The kick is right in the front. The percussion's perfectly placed. I think any critique I'm going to have on this is going to be creative. Sometimes, you know, I get a project on these streams where I'm just like, yeah, this is perfect. I don't need to fix anything. This might be one of them. You know, I can never pronounce your name. Perilyn. Welcome on Twitch. This is smooth, man. I don't know how you'll take this, but it sounds like that Drake record from like 2014 or whatever it was, the Passion Fruit, which is like one of my favorite records from him. It's like a black coffee type vibe, something he would produce. It's so smooth. I can hear like a soul or R&B singer on this. It's really nice. I need one dance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is smooth, man. Yeah, Drake had that whole era where he was doing this like housey, mid-tempo house stuff. I forget what it's called. Is it dance hall? So solid. Yeah, that's what I would describe this record as. Dance hall record. This might be the first stream ever that I don't have audio problems. We'll cross our fingers. I'm just chilling, listening to this. Like, I don't have that many critiques. If you had like a really nice, like sharp top line on this, like again, like an R&B type vibe, or like even like a Drake type thing, where it's like more of a sing talk, like that could be really nice. I think that the song may be a little bit long for the style. Like with all this in mind, you might want to condense it to like 2.5 to 3 minutes, or 245 to like 3.5. Like trim a minute off it. Like there's a lot of redundancy in your arrangement anyway. I think you could very easily do that. Your master is not doing much, but it might be because I'm missing something. This is nice, man. It gives me like that 2013 Daft Punk vibe, you know? Like that vibe too, like the random access memories. Okay, I think I get the vibe here. Yeah. Honestly, I don't have many critiques on this, man. I think that one of my big things is maybe shrink the arrangement down a bit. You said in the chat that you're writing it for, like, you know, extended mix, radio mix. I love that. I would love to hear, like, a shorter mix of this, like you know, 2.5 to 4 or to 3.5 minute mix. And I think that it leaves so much space for like a top line, like a singer or like a top melody or something. Like you have that really cool like or whatever, like the it comes in kind of later. It's really nice, but it's like accentuating something else. Like I would definitely try to bring in like a vocal top line, whether that's a melodic idea or like a vocal. I think this could be a really amazing record if you had that focal point in the middle. Let me go ahead and listen back a little bit just so I can hear if I have any critique on this. It's smooth, like it's clean. My gut is saying to turn up the bass slightly because it feels like a big like focus of the song. Like give it a few more decibels. Let me check your sonics here. All right, how about now? Can you hear me, guys? It's always something, man. I thought that the mic was home free today. It's not. Let me know if that's better. All right, cool. All right. Yeah, I was just saying the bass, I think, could be, you could give this like 200 hertz boost right here at the top of the bass harmonics. Kind of accentuate this area here where you have a little bit of a dip. And then perhaps you can add a sub underneath at like 30 to do the octave of that 60 note. Just add a little bit more sub in there. I don't know if you need it, but if it's missing anything, that might be it. That's okay. Sorry, guys. More or less, that's what I was saying. I wish that my audio setup was not so jank. This is like every single time I try to do this, I have some sort of audio problem. And I think it's just because I keep switching DAWs and my sample rate might be shifting around when I launch a new plugin or whatever. So it's an issue that I don't know if I'm able to fix, but seems to have resolved itself now. All right, so that sounds pretty good to me, man. So maybe on your master, we can try a little bit of a boost. I noticed that it's kind of quiet here. With that boost, we can probably turn the bass down slightly. Let's make sure our bass is not peaking too hot above everything else. All right, one other thing I want to try here. It might do something cool is if we use like an amp emulator, whether it's like the built-in or like a guitar rig, and we just add a little bit of grit to this. I'm just thinking, just a little bit of that amp grit creates so much like coolness for this. I think that'd be really awesome. Yeah, Chrono Trigger. So it's part of a OST, like remixed. Sounds good. So I don't know. That's just a creative choice, I think, like adding a little bit of amp emulation to that bass sound. But I think that you have so much movement going on in that bass, it's kind of implying that like plucked bass feeling, that funky kind of sound. And I think if you play into that with a little bit of, amp emulation, could be kind of neat. Don't have too many other critiques on this. I don't want to harp on it if I don't have to. I think it's really solid. My only notes would be to maybe experiment with some, amp emulation on that one bass sound. You could probably master this much louder than I'm even pushing it here, but I've pushed it a little further. And then just shortening down the arrangement, man. Try like a 3-minute version. Just doesn't feel like necessary to be 5.5. I think that it's a really, really solid idea. You can try like a vocal on it or something. It's cool that it's a Chrono Trigger thing. Maybe you could even play into that in your vocals. Awesome. So I'm going to save this one, and we're going to move on to the next one. Everybody give a round of applause to Dustin Rosada. And I'm going to go ahead and save as. This is always a problem. It's like every single time this happens, especially in Live 10, we're going to just save this as Fields of Time Julian edit. Save. And then save as. Or collect all and save, I should say. Awesome. Everybody give him a nice little round of applause. Great record. I love that idea. Like I said, kind of gives me that Drake passion fruit, one dance type of vibe, dance hall feels. Love that. Really cool song. And as always, Dustin, great submission. All right, we're going to move on to the next thing. Let's go ahead and do that now. Don't know why it's doing that. The next project of the day is Polite Lies. Now, this one has like 3 versions. Maybe we should just look at the newest. Today at 10:30. That's probably the one. What do you guys think? 1, 2, or 3? Give me your honest opinion. I should put a poll up. I don't know how to do that, though. I think we're going to run with the newest. Yeah, that was a really good tune, Dustin. You guys are really stepping it up. I love it. All right. Let's see if this one loads in 10. We shall see very soon whether it does. I think it will because it's loading. I believe this is DS Ridge. Or perhaps this is Andreas. Not entirely sure who submitted this. If it's you, let us know in the comments. I'm missing a lot of plugins, though. We shall see how this plays out. This seems like a very dense project, and it's missing some stuff. So let's go. Okay, it's not DS Ridge. This must be the Andreas one then. Andreas Muller. Or perhaps it's Wickwire. There's a few in here. No, it's not Wickwire. Again, great mix. Everything is really sitting in its own spot. I think it's pretty crucial to this kind of housey stuff to have your drums really separated. Nice. It's kind of giving like James Bond, like 1960s James Bond though, like Sean Connery. Ooh, that's nice. Sonic Buster, I believe Dustin is in our Discord, so you can find him, I think, under Dustin Rosati. Okay, the kick is getting a little bit lost there. Just a bit. Man, that's smooth. You guys are killing me with these smooth ones today. Love it. Oh. That's so nice. Hell yeah. Even like the instrumentation's kind of giving me Bond. Like that string pad, like the guitars. Excellent. Man, you guys are stepping it up. Stepping up the game. This is sick. Woo. I would almost say, like, commit to the spy thing. Like, it has that, like, Mission Impossible, like, Bond feel. Like, if you do that big, like, chordal movement they do in Bond and Mission Impossible, it could be sick. This is clean, man. I wonder who submitted this. If you're here, show your face. Just says the name. I'll have to go back and see who this was. Yeah, I think we've gotten the gist of it. Honestly, this is a really good tune as well. I would say my one huge critique is that the kick is getting kind of lost. It's a very weak sounding kick for the sake of the song. Like, this is like setting up for like this crazy kick expectation. You know, like I'm thinking like this really thuddy, like Oliver type kick, like a really like doom doom, like a real thudder. And this is just kind of weak sauce. I also notice you've done this in audio, so it wouldn't be easy for me to change it. However, what we can do is this. Let's call this OG. Let's do this. Consolidate. Show you guys a little trick. So it's not Wickwire. Yeah, I figured as much because you sent me a different project file type. This is just a zip. Anybody know who this is? I think it is Andreas Muller in the chat. He was saying he was going to submit one. Really, really cool tune, this one. Consolidating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to audio, and we're going to use, one big audio, and then we're going to use Ableton's audio to MIDI translation to see if we can derive the kick. And then I'm going to switch the kick to MIDI. And we can change the kick after that. Sonic sent one in. Let me finish the next three. And if there's time still, then we will do that as well. Boom, 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 boom. All right. So that was all to do this. Da-da-da. Bam. And what I'm also going to do is consolidate the velocity so they're all the same. Just banging. I don't know why people work in audio for drums, but I respect you, even though I disagree with it. Okay, zoom in. Let's do this. Set the loop mode to quarter notes. Set the legato to on, and set the quantize. With the exception of these big ones, which are weird, that is a perfect quarter note kick pattern where you had it initially. Ta-da! Okay, so now we can actually swap the kick very easily without having to copy it 50 times. More than that, probably 150 times. So now, let's go ahead and grab a drum rack. I'm going to use a sample here from, let's say, Oliver. Yeah, again, I'm trying to play into that funk feel. A really like gnarly, like he's like the king of this like vintage kick feel. You play this and then like we'll go through them as we play so you can hear. That's obviously too quiet. Try this one. Slightly better, still not there. Oh, that might be cool. That 80s vibe. That might be the one. Kind of cool in its own way, if you're into that sort of thing. I'm only using his pack because I feel like this has what it takes. Like, it needs that, like, bottom end, but that grit, too. That's the original, right? It's like night and day. Ah, is this Disco Killed the Drummer? Ah, got it. We finally know who it is. So I also want to make sure our balance on here is good, so I'm going to give us a little bit more bite in the top. We can boost around that like 1 to 300 range. If you compare that now, like it's a little too hot, I think. Maybe like that kick just makes all the difference in my opinion. It really fills out the record. Like A-B that, you know. Here's a little trick for you from Steve Duda. If you click key and you key map a key to two things and you press key off, you can actually toggle the two with that key. So we can actually toggle between the two kicks to hear the difference here. That's the original. There's the new one. Yeah. And to me, that just makes like a world of difference there. So, yeah, quick little trick for the key mapping thing. I love to use it. Ever since Steve showed me that, I was at the seminar once, and I was like, oh my God, that's the most useful thing ever. So there's the kick. I think that really does help the song a lot. It gives it a lot more energy. So we may have to adjust the mastering to accommodate this new kick, but yeah, coming in quite hot on this master now. So maybe we can turn this down a bit. I would suggest getting yourself a nice mastering limiter. I think that's probably one of the most useful things you can buy third party. I don't mind a little bit of clip, you know, like, so we can get some actual gain reduction going on our final limiter here, but I don't want it to come in like +5 or whatever. I can show you how much of a difference this would make to actually use a actual limiter, and it's pretty stark. So if we just turn this off, actually just do this. Here's your original original mastering chain. Here's just the Pro L. Now let's do this. Obviously, we're coming in hot still, so maybe we'll put the utility back. You just have a lot more mileage with the Pro L. You don't have as much. You don't have as much, fear of clipping and distortion as you do with the bass limiter. You can also try, again, we were discussing this earlier in the stream, a clipper instead. This is like relatively new tech to me, but it's an interesting concept. Instead of limiting, you just kind of clip. Again, if you feel morally okay with doing that. There's your limiter. Here's your clip. Sonically, it's cool. Sounds good. Whatever. He has the Oxford limiter, but haven't put it on yet. Yeah, I think that'll do you nicely. That's a good limiter as well. I just love the Pro L myself. Isotope Ozone Maximizer is another favorite, and I also use Newfangled Audio's Elevate for more transparent stuff. But those are my 3 choices. If I'm going for something punchy like this, though, I always reach for that Pro L. Great sounding, though. I think that my main critiques on this guy were the kick, which we've really helped along. And then, obviously, the master. I do think as well, maybe you can try experimenting with a smaller and shorter arrangement. 6.5 minutes is a quite long arrangement here. I would say maybe go for like 4.5 if you're going for long. If you're going for short, like 3.5. It's awesome to have a longer song as long as it's not meandering. And I think that it may fall into like meandery territory when you start repeating yourself for 6 minutes. So that's just my opinion. I think it's a really solid song. Really, really cool idea and a nice little groove. I love that like spy undertone. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but there's like this underlying Bond Mission Impossible feeling to this one. Really cool idea. Hope that you like the changes I've made to it. I think that we're going to move on to the next one because there's really not much more I would change to this outside of the arrangement, and I think that that's something you can handle yourself. Great record. Thank you for submitting. Go ahead and save this, and we're going to move on to our next one quickly. But everybody give a nice little round of applause for Disco Killed the Drummer. Really cool funk electronic mix-up here. Love it. Super, super awesome. All right, so next up we have Revolver, the Diaz Ridge remix. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Now, I don't think this is a Live 10 project, but we will see. It is not. Just for my sanity and for not switching DAWs again, I'm just going to try to open up this one instead of, instead of trying to open up 11 and then 10 again. I'm just going to do this. Yeah, so he sends it as an installable project, which is cool. Yeah, man. Today, you guys have really blown me away today with your submissions. I think that these are some of the best submissions I've gotten in a long time. They're all just kind of banging out the door. There's this nice, smooth, funky feeling today amidst all of the submissions of the day, and I think it's a really cool sound. Loving what you guys are doing. So I'm installing this project really quick. Then we'll open up the other one in Live 11. If we have a minute or two, we can get into Sonic Busters as well. That late sub. In the meantime, if any of you guys have any questions for me while this loads, feel free to ask them. I've also just realized my coffee machine is on. I must turn that off. All right, I am back. If you guys have any questions or like things that you're interested in right now, let me know while this installs. I have personally been working on a lot of new material for this new year, and you'll see and hear about it relatively soon. I think the first release we have in the calendar is like March or April, so that's going to be a fun one. And then a lot of really big songs this year. You'll hear from me. It's kind of become my focus is my music career stuff, less as much YouTube. Sonic Buster says, my big question today is dynamic range. What is your question about it? And what is your thing about it? Like, what is your question regarding dynamic range? All right, here we are. Cruise control. Let's go ahead and open this boy. Watch it be a Live 11. No. Roscoe says, I've been lurking here and echo what Julian says. Really funky, nice projects. Thank you. I appreciate that. And, well, I guess I shouldn't say I appreciate that. I should say I agree, and I think that they're incredibly cool today. It's like got this really awesome funk energy on the submissions today, which is amazing. Something that we typically don't get on these streams. Sonic says, in a lot of my tracks are significantly quieter than others on release. As I understand it, that may be the cause of this issue because I'm otherwise really happy with the mixes. They're just very quiet. Yeah, so loudness is what you're describing there. It's the perceived loudness of your song. One really good way to meter whether or not your song is quote unquote competitively loud or like comparably loud to another song is to monitor your LUFS. There's a few free utilities out there. There's one called Loudness Meter by Julian that you can use. It's a good way to average the volume of your song. Dynamic range can exist and coexist with loudness. You can have really loud parts of your song, like your drops can be completely blasted out to like -6 LUFS, whereas your breakdowns could be much quieter, like -10 or 12. A lot of big DJs do that. But where you will find the most, the most loudness is in those choruses, and you want to make sure that your choruses are louder than everything else. And at your loudest point in the song, you want to make sure that those are competitively loud with everything else. And you can do that with either a limiter, a compressor, or a clipper. And the only thing you have to bear in mind is that you have to have a good balance sonically before you can send something to a clipper or limiter or mastering compressor. Because if you send in like a kick that's like +6 and then you have the rest of the mix that's like -5 or whatever, the discrepancy between the kick volume and the rest of the mix will make it impossible to compress the entire mix and elevate it, because by the time you get that -6 for everything else up to 0, the kick has been completely obliterated by the limiter. So a lot of mastering is just making sure that your music is balanced. You want to have like your kick and your other instruments and your percussion, whatever, in a relatively close dynamic range. So like your kick may be 2 or 3 decibels louder than your bass or your other instruments, but you never want something to be like extremely loud above everything else, because if you try to compress that or limit it or clip it, you're going to be destroying the loudest thing before anything else. The short answer, though, is that you really need to utilize limiters, compressors, and clippers to really get the volume that you're after. It's just rooted more in mixing than anything. Storm says LUFs differ from platform to platform. I think I have a handy chart somewhere for all the streaming platforms. So that's another thing, is that LUFs don't differ. It's the volume that the actual platforms play back the tracks differ. So like there's an average on like an LUFS level on Spotify versus like Apple Music that the platforms will normalize to. So let's say like if you're listening on Spotify, it normalizes to -15 LUFS. Spotify or Apple Music is a different one, but if you're making your music like extremely loud, it's just going to pull it down to -15 anyway. And it varies from platform to platform, but generally there's this new concept of mastering per platform so that you can get the maximum volume without having to have your song get completely decreased in the normalization phase, or like unnecessarily blasting something out for the sake of volume. But anyway, I hope that's helpful. We can discuss that in our call later today if you want. This is Wickwire Cruise Control. Let's go ahead and give this a play. Sorry, Diaz Ridge. We'll get to yours next. Even this has like that underlying funky feel. I can tell this is going to be a slow burn. In like a good way. Am I missing anything? I just want to make sure that I have everything. Yeah, Cruise Control feels like one of those like mid 2000s like driving songs like they have on the YouTube videos. change. Definitely has like an Adam K and Soha feeling, or Cascade, or any of those guys. Funny because my YouTube video is a driving VOD through a snowstorm. It's awesome. Is this released already, or is this still unreleased? Very nice. I think a little bit of ear candy through these sections might be really nice to kind of break up the monotony of the plucks a bit. So like you have this really nice like pad going, but maybe some like other elements like atmospheric vocals with reverb and stuff, that sort of thing can really fill up that space and make sections like this feel a little bit more interesting. That was an interesting chord change there. A good reference would be like Shingo Nakamura on Monster Cat Silk. We're going to make a lot of small mix adjustments to this that will make it like 2 times better. I'm already hearing them in my head. It sounds like old Deadmau5 meets like Adam K. A little bit of Cascade, but not as much. Very cool. Yeah, so I think we can jump right into this one. So I think compositionally it's really pretty. I think from the arrangement sense, there's this one point right here where I felt it was a little bit strange. I think it was here. Maybe it was here. It kind of builds up into another like part that sounds similar. Maybe it was earlier. It might have been here, actually. Yeah, vocal would be very nice. It would carry the tune. No offense to your tune, but... So I'm trying to find where I was referencing. Yeah, it's here, I believe. See, like, this here doesn't feel that different from this to me. It's very marginally different. I would say, if it were me, I would try to make this build go into something new here. I realize that you introduce some things and you have a slight variation in, like, your automation, but I would just say increase that contrast here. It will make it feel less strange, and it'll feel more like this is an intentional build into something new. So there's that. First and foremost, I want to address some mix stuff. So we're going to take it just as I address every other mix. First and foremost, we're going to check the bass against the kick. And I want to make sure of that because that's really the foundation of the song. So first, let's take the kick and the bass and see what we can do with that. And notice you're using an X for kick here. So this is frozen. I'm going to unfreeze that. So I noticed that you're cutting off the top end of the kick. This might actually be a candidate for something that you can reveal here. The top end of the kick is really where a lot of that that high end, clarity and punch of a kick is. So I would be, a little bit remiss to not have this high end here. So I think that's the right word for that. But what I would say is instead of just purely rolling this off, let's go ahead and automate this so we can turn off, or not that one, this one. The frequency of 4. Let's go ahead and open this up when it hits this section here. So we have a very intentional build into something new. Think like Arcadia by Deadmau5. He has this filtered kick where it sounds like it's filtered below, and then it opens up and has this really strong kick sound, punchy, as he comes out of it. Might actually be this kick, to be honest. Yeah, immediately more punch and more presence. So this is one way to do it. What I would actually suggest instead of an EQ is let's go ahead and remove this. We'll take a filter doing a low pass, and let's go ahead and pull it to where it was. It was like 1K or something like that. Let's do this. Yeah. Because what that allows us to do is something like this, where we add a little bit of resonance and we sweep it in so it's not as abrupt. So it's like. And you can also, do that here as well with a little bit of high pass so it comes back in stronger. Something along these lines. Just giving you some ideas. You don't have to use any of this if you don't want to, but I think that a little bit of high pass here would be nice too. So it's filtering in, you're losing that low pass, and you also lose the low end at the same time so that you end up with a nice little drop in here. Just kind of my 2 cents on the kick. Just giving that high end back added a lot to this kick. I'm gonna just give a little bit more of the sub back as well. We give a little bit of boost like around here. That 100 to 200 is that like boxy range. This is a little bit sub heavy, and I want to give a little bit more mid back. Let's go ahead and pull out some of this like mid. Yeah. Something like that on the kick. Turn this kick up like 2 or 3 decibels, so it's a little bit more forefront. We're making progressive house after all. A little bit of resonance on the filters too make for really nice kicks. I would almost say this too. And again, I don't want to mess up your arrangement too much, but I'm just giving you some ideas. Lose the high cut as well. Again, we want to make sure we're perceiving that high end. That's our clarity and punch. So let's go ahead and roll off some highs on this filter, and we'll do the same thing as we did with the clap. We'll bring it in slowly. Something like this. This track has strong jam and spoon vibe for me. I don't know who that is. So I'm gonna bring the shaker in like. I'm not thrilled with that shaker. It almost feels like off time. Let's bring the hat in instead. Right there. So same deal with this. I want to reveal that high end, give it the clarity it needs. Kick, clap, and hi-hat. Let's hear those together now. A little bit long, so I'm going to pull the reverb back a little bit. Let's, instead of removing the highs, let's remove some lows. Go for that classic punchy progressive sound. Same on the clap. I'm going to pull some low mids out of that, and we're going to give it a little bit of high boost. We're actually doing the antithesis of what you had. A little bit less delay, a little bit less reverb. So this hi-hat feels a little bit dull to me. I think it's actually the key of the hi-hat. What I will do is grab all of these and we'll transpose this up like, let's try like 3 semitones. So this is where it was. Get a little bit more sharpness in there. I'm not thrilled with the hi-hat sample, but for what it is, I think that sounds all right. All right, let's go ahead and bring in the bass sound. That's where I was going with this anyhow. This is like my home genre. Like I was writing this when I was like 15, so it's like so familiar. I could do this all day. I love this style. So let's move it forward a bit. And with our sidechain, we're just going to do a similar sidechain to what I was saying in the earlier section of the stream. We're going to make this immediate. We want it to trigger as soon as the kick goes. We don't want any lag at all. And basically, we only want to listen for the click of the kick so that we can trigger it only when it's hearing the shortest element of the click, or the kick, which is the click. So you can see, if we pull this back down, you're getting the full length of the kick, which is pulling the side chain. We don't want that. We just want that little transient at the front. Oops, sorry, wrong knob. Then we can pull the release back a little, so it's a little bit less long as well. We can pull the threshold down so you have a tighter side chain now. And now suddenly our bass is feeling much tighter. All right, let's check span. See where we're at. So you have a lot of sub, but you don't have a lot of mids. Let's rename this to sub. And let's see if there's any bass in these other layers. It does not appear like it. So we have sub and we have the other layers. We don't have a lot of bass. So what I'll do is I'll duplicate your sub, unfreeze it, and what we're going to do is just pull all of this up an octave. So we'll take Serum. Let's go ahead and simplify this a little bit so we don't need our sub. Let's go ahead and get rid of this, and we'll just use a saw wave. Up an octave, and we'll make it a little bit more harmonically rich in the mids. And this will create that traditional dead mouse bass pad sound, if we can get it to play. So I'm thinking that I'm hearing the sub here. Oops. Please excuse my cat. All right, buddy. I think I'm hearing the sub. In the sub channel, I'm actually hearing the sub oscillator. So we're actually going to keep this at 0. Give a little bit more volume to this oscillator here. A little bit more unison. Something like that. Let's call this bass. And then on our group here with our synths, let's go ahead and make sure that those are nice and tight with the sidechain as well. So our bass sidechain is nice and tight. Give a little bit more ratio on the attack, or on the cut. I know, the cat. The cat really helps, man. We're gonna copy this to our pads as well. You want to make sure you're sidechaining everything, not just some elements. Let's remove that. I don't have that plugin, but it should be fine. What we'll do is we'll just paste this to the group. Just having the right sidechain setting will really elevate your song to like 10, you know? Let's bring the percussion back in now. So we're hitting the limiter way too hot right now. What I'll do is I'll turn down the groups. Command A, collapse. Let's expand 1. Grab everything again and pull this down like 4, 5 decibels. Yeah. So we're not hitting the master like at +6 anymore. It was really hot. I think there's like a lack of brightness to some of these elements too. Let's make sure that our percussion is still hot, so like I'm gonna pull these back up to where they were. We can leave these more or less at 0. So I'm going to pull this up 3 decibels. So that our percussion's hotter than everything else. That's what we want. Still coming in hot on the master. Unbelievable. Let's go ahead and just put a utility and pull it down like 5. Slightly too much discrepancy now between these, so I'm going to pull these back a little bit. Let's listen to the bass with it. Sounding pretty solid. Our bass layer, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of distortion. So it has a little bit more harmonics to cut through. Yeah, nice. So what is each of these? This is the pad. We're going to pull that up a lot. And rather than just calling this the synth group, what I'll do is I'll actually make these individual groups. So we're going to make a pad group and a lead group. This is like your lead. Yeah. That's a lead as well. This is just your pad. So I'm just going to separate the pad, actually. And I'll treat that separately. Because it's very different from the other elements. Okay, so this is a little dull. I think it's inherent to your sound design, though. If you just reveal a little bit more high end. Pull this to neutral here. And we'll pull the gain back a little bit. All right, let's hear that with the bass. Can you tell I like mixing progressives? We wanna make sure we're not coming in too hot here, so I'm gonna pull this back. That's our main guy right there, so we don't want to diminish that too much. Let's make sure that's up in the front. It's kind of how I approach mixing, so I want to make sure we subgroup everything first. That's your core idea, so you definitely want to have that up top. I would group your snare into the claps and yeah. See how this reveal works now. Now, I don't know if you have the plugin, but Valhalla Room would do wonders for this pad here. I just feel very strongly about this. Yeah, that's more or less the mix down, I think. There's not too much else I would change here. Maybe actually lay off the sidechain a little bit on the pad so that we have like floaty a bit more. Almost want to say do this, like. I don't know, something like that. And then last of all, I think on this guy, I'm going to try very briefly to add a like a vocal pad kind of thing. I think that would be nice. So you're in D sharp. Yep. Yeah. So something as simple as like, again, that Shingo Nakamura idea is like a very, basically the concept I was going for. Let's see if I can find one. I think I might have something. That's D. So I mean, if we go up an oct or a note. Like, it's not what I'm going for. There's this really good pack from Black Octopus that does it, but my Google Drive's offline right now, so I'm unable to use it. Atmosphere. There we go. Yeah, this should be perfect, actually. Just a bunch of reverb on it or something. This is very crude, but I think you'll get the gist of what I'm going for. Maybe like some sidechain on that to make it like feel part of the record, but other than that, that's kind of it. There's this plugin called Slate Fresh Air. That would be great on this. Very bright. Here. Just add that crispness. Like that note's way off. Oh, that's so off. You could like stretch this like to hell, like that as well. Like perhaps could be interesting. Keep the correct notes. Yeah, that's actually more like it. Anyway, I think that about does it for this one. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out, actually. These are the like my favorite type of projects to work on, the ones that I'm like really confident in my mixing abilities on, and where I have like you have this amazing foundation that's very transformative. Like if I do slight tweaks, it will make the song 10x better. I think that's this record exactly. So I'm really quite pleased with how it turned out. I hope that was enlightening to you in some sort of way. And yeah, it sounds like a classic prog track now. Let's go ahead and listen to that drop one more time, and then we'll move on to the next one. Here we go. And you can do a lot more like in the breaks, and like there's more I can do to this, but I'm not going to harp on it for an hour. Oh, that's... Okay, I lied. One more thing. You have a huge volume problem here where your break is significantly louder than your drop. We're going to fix that. Here. Quick and dirty way of doing it. Pull your master gain down. Pre-limiter. immediately better. Okay, cool. All right, cool. You might want to apply that to your other drops as well, but I think you get the gist. All right. Great one, Wickwire. Thank you for sending that in. Everybody give a nice little round of applause for him. I realize I spent a lot of time on that one. I just like this kind of music a lot, so it's fun to work on. Keanu on Twitch says, hello. Hi. All right, we have one more today. Actually, we have two more with Sonic Buster. We're going to address that one as well. Let's go ahead and close that out, and we will move this into the completed folder. Great job. Love that tune. All right, last one of the day. Or I keep saying that. It's actually not. We have two more today. This is Revolver Diaz Ridge Remix. If I know anything about Diaz Ridge, I know that this will be amazing, and I will probably not have to change very much. Because he is a great producer. I love that. So I use this aggregate streaming software called Restream, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, and I don't think it understands like the feedback. There we go. I don't think it understands the emoji for that. So like waving pink hand. It's funny. So on the unified chat between Twitch and YouTube, it's saying that. It's funny. Yeah, so this is DS Ridge Revolver Remix. It's my record with Sophie from earlier last year. People still working on remixes. Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and check this out. Nice. Keanu says, are you familiar with Vito Dito? No, I'm not. No, Mr. Night Creature, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just funny that my software does that. It's almost better. Nice. He's a god. Definitely check him out. He doesn't make music anymore, unfortunately. He's very famous when Progressive House was big. I'll have to check him out. Right up my alley. Oh, I like that. You switched the lyrics. It's like, you got you dancing? Like, it started with dancing. That's cool. Nice. Nice. Super cool and a good length too. Love this one. I wish it made it into the competition. We would have totally shouted it out. Yeah, so I love the ideas. I think that there's a few mix adjustments I would make. I think that the piano is very quiet, especially this guy. I don't know if that's like intentionally that quiet, but it's very quiet. I feel like they belong here or something, you know? That was one of the main things. The piano was just kind of buried. There's also that really cool like counter melody. Turn that up a bit. This is like a modern take on like 1985. So one other thing that I noticed initially was that the drums are a little bit on the dull side. Kind of similar to a few of the other project files where it sounds good, but like they're not like punching enough. And I think that we can resolve that relatively easily just by adding a little bit of EQ to some of these elements, like the kick, for example. We're going to add a little bit of sharpness to the top. Maybe you're actually pulling some out. I think it's actually inherent to the sample largely, but we're missing some here. I just feel like it needs like, you know, I realize this is redundant because there's another copy of it doing the exact same thing here in reverse, but I think that it needs that high end. So you have that punch. Compare that to this. It just like for this type of music, like the boom bap of the kick and bass is very like important. So I want to make sure that the kick is really bapping. So I just want to give back some of that high end, make it really sharp. And the same thing applies to the other percussion. Now, you guys, I mean, obviously take my advice here with a grain of salt, as I've been mixing for like 3 hours now, or 2 hours or whatever. So I don't want to make too harsh of changes to these things. But for the most part, I think I can stand by what I'm saying here. Although we are missing a bunch of his UAD plugins, which might actually be diminishing the sharpness of these percussions here. So I don't really want to change it because I can't hear how it sounds with the plugins. I'm assuming that with some clipping, distortion from Decapitator, and some compression, it's probably sharpening up those loops really nicely. I don't really want to change too much of those two things because of that, but I do stand by this stuff with the kick. We might be able to emulate this just by adding a little bit of high end, maybe like a slight compressor, but this is kind of what I'm going for. Oh, he has the bounce. It's right there. I'm a dummy. Okay, so my point still stands. It is a little bit on the dull side. I would just give us a little bump here. You know, something like that. Perhaps a slight bit of air. Like ever so slightly. Like yeah, like just gives a little bit of lift. So nice. I just realized my Ableton's been off to the side this whole time. Oops. Yeah, it just gives that brightness and that transparency that you need in those top loops. So I would say just something like that. Put this before any sort of reverb you have. You can probably stick this on this group as well. I can do that for you. Let's go ahead and use the regular one instead of the bounce at this point. See, that sounds better as the regular instead of the bounce. Maybe the plugins are actually diminishing the highs a bit. But regardless, that's kind of what I'm going for. All right, let's see. On this bass sound, we might want to try something similar, like a little boost here and then maybe a little bit on the top to give it some crunch. Because again, this is a very like punchy bass sound. Bass could come back a bit, I think, too. And the vocal could definitely come forward a bit as well. I feel like it's a little bit quiet in there. Yeah, that's familiar. I'm going to give it like 2 or 3 decibels here. I think that would be enough. On the keys, you could probably do for a bit more sidechain too. I don't know if you actually even have any. Something like that. I'm pretty happy with how this sounds, honestly. I don't have much to critique in the arrangement or creative department. I think that those are like the major mix things I would adjust. At this point in time, it might behoove you to just turn this into an original track now that the original song has been out for so long. And also, like, you know, might be easier just to create a new thing with it. It's a really solid idea, even if you pull the original elements out. Like, still got a tune. I still feel like the piano sidechain could be like heavier. Yeah, you know, just make it pump a little bit more. But I think that's what I'm going to do on this Diaz Ridge remix. I personally think you should probably just create, you know, a new song from the idea. I love the take on Revolver, but I think that it's almost stronger if you don't use it. It also doesn't like gel all that well with the original Revolver vocal. In my opinion, I think it could just be a better song in general if you just created a new idea from it, I should say. So I'm going to quickly download this last project file. We'll listen to this one more time while we do. Everybody give a nice little round of applause for Diaz Ridge for the nice little take on my record, Revolver. Super cool to hear you guys remixing my stuff. Hoping this year I can get a few more, if not remix contests or whatever, like at least like challenges or like stem downloads for you guys so you can have your way with my songs. Everybody give them a nice little clap in the chat. Yeah, we'll listen to this one last time here as I unzip the other thing. All right. Pink hand clap, pink hand clap, pink hand clap. I love this guy's music, man. It's such a cool mix of like progressive and like funky stuff. It's really cool. Yeah, so next up we have Turnabout Project, which is Sonic Buster, which is typically an FL Studio producer. So let's see how this goes. I understand that you've tried to use Ableton today, so let's see if it works. Well, Live is having a panic attack as usual, switching between versions. Storm says, "Curious what this would sound like at 128." That's an interesting idea. I've actually been slowing down. A lot of my stuff that was at 128 is now at like either like faster, like 131, or like slower, like 122 to 126. I just kind of been drifting away from 128 personally the past few years. All right, so Sonic Buster. Okay, so amazing. You've actually written something in Live. First of all, everybody give her a round of applause for that. Learning a new DAW is no joke. Especially coming from FL Studio, which is completely foreign. Let's go ahead and listen to this thing and see how it sounds. While we listen, I'm going to pull up Span so we have a view of what's going on. I have a suspicion it's very top heavy. Oh, that's loud. Oh, you've converted the song to Live from Ableton. So is this like a is that like a conversion tool that you're using to convert over to the other DAW? It's a really cool idea. Oh, you've done it by hand. Nice. I think there's actually an internet tool that does it now that you might look into. I've heard there's one that exists. I think there's like a new one though that a YouTuber created like 2 or 3 years ago. I think it might have been Dylan Tallchief. Okay, cool. I think I get the gist of what you're doing here. I want to start off with doing some basic balance stuff again. I noticed on Span, on the master, we're lacking a lot in this mid-range. I think your only like super low end thing is like this chuggy, this guy. Like let's mute that and see what it sounds like without it. If we turn off percussion, for example. So we're seeing that kick as our sub bass, but we actually don't have anything like musically that's filling this range from like 300 to 30. That's why it's feeling really top heavy right now. So can I compare with the FL Wave? Is it in here? If you send it over, I can. Am I hearing the thank you for trying this demo? Must be silent. Yeah, I don't have that. So first thing I want to do is bring in that bass, right? So on your bass group, I want to make sure that we're actually producing the low end this needs. So you have this weird like super subby sound, but you don't have any mids. Let's see. So this is like your. So this has sub to it, and it has like an upper harmonic, but it doesn't have a lot of mid. For some reason, Pro Q didn't come through either, but that's okay. It's like this area here that we're lacking. I think that might just be a lack of an instrument there. What does this guy sound like? Serum FX is giving me issues, apparently. Oh! Serum FX just crashed the Ableton. Nice. Maybe I just haven't updated Serum FX in a while. Well, we're loading it up. Hopefully it comes back. There we go. Yeah, I think that my Serum Effects is corrupt or something because I'm not getting your basses at all. And I feel like you wouldn't have had it like that. It's just like a weird bug. If I just mute Serum Effects on all of these, does it fix it? It's definitely better. It's very gritty. This is definitely the best of them. I was muted for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Thank you for trying this demo.
So you have a lot of harsh high information in this. Oh, you do have the wave. I don't know where it is. Was it in the link? I could just play the wave too if you want. But yeah, I think that it's just lacking in low end. And you could largely fix that just by simplifying your sound design. Like this is the most simple of all of them and it's still pretty complex. So what I would do is like maybe duplicate this. Just try like a saw wave, you know, something super simple. I guess my serum's out of date. Whoa, that's weird. Like something as simple as that would fill up this track a lot. Oh, it's on Discord. Got it. I'll download the most recent version. We'll play it on stream here. See, that just fills up the low mids, though. I think that's what this needs. Suddenly, it's so full with just one saw, you know? Comparatively. Give it a shot. I think something like that would be nice. I'm going to pull in her original from FL Studio so you guys can hear that. And that will give you an indicator of how this actually sounds rather than going through Ableton conversion and all of that. So we get a better picture of how it actually sounds, supposed to sound. No, you're okay for using FL. A lot of great musicians do. It's just, I mean, regardless of if I was in an FL or Ableton, it's a nightmare switching. I really appreciate you doing this. Like, it's very useful. So I'm thinking that maybe one of the issues I'm seeing here is that you have, like, I think you may be adding a lot of layers you don't actually need rather than having one really solid layer. Like, a lot of these basses are, could be replaced by one really good bass. You don't need like 4 different ones. I've just added this one, of course, so like disregard that one. But like, there's already like 3 or 4 bass layers, and typically, like, my philosophy at least is to have like 1 or maybe 2 good bass layers, one that's filling the upper octave and one that's filling the sub, so that you can really fill in that space rather than having a lot of competing layers masking each other. So just adding that one saw bass layer that fills those harmonics, like, relatively speaking, maybe that and this one could fulfill the need of all 4 of these.
Thank you for trying this demo.
That's funny. See, like, just, 2 layered octave saws fulfills that mid-low fullness I think you're seeking by adding all of these layers. So that's like my big lesson for you, I guess, for this is like, rather than like adding new layers to it, maybe try simplifying your sound design and making one like really full sounding bass. It's usually like the better solution. Does Porter do that? There's this zone that I couldn't seem to hit. Yeah, I think it's this like low octave. And that's because of the harmonics of these waveforms. So like if we actually pulled up like span on each of these sound designs, and this is like a lesson for anybody, not just you. You have these really harmonically complex wave shapes, right? Like you're using these like really squelchy, growly wave shapes, and you have a sine at the bottom, which is nice and full. But your upper harmonics here, which are generated by this wave shape, they're not going to produce like a solid like fullness here. It's just going to be like scattered harmonics throughout. You can see it here. Yeah. See how like you have this is your sine wave, right? Like if I mute that, you see how like unbalanced these waves are, or the harmonics are? It's because of this wave shape. So if you were to just like literally like, I'll mute that for a moment and then switch this to like a saw. Obviously, there's like effects on this and stuff, so this might not actually work. But if you compare this to like my other one, for example. Let's say you had 2 octaves down and it was playing like that. And it's just the saw wave with nothing on it. You see how full this low end is? Like that's the fullness you're missing because you're not using like simple wave shapes. And to get that fullness, you know, you can do something as simple as like a saw wave in a single unison. I know it feels like easy or too simple, but that's like, you know, the root of almost all electronic music is based on like these synthesizers with like 5 wave shapes, right? Like a sine, square, noise, maybe a pulse width or a triangle, and then obviously a saw. And majority of electronic music is derived from a saw or a sine wave. So yeah, you can add like more voices and it becomes like a Reese. It's the foundation of almost all my music. You can go monophonic and go for like that more like old school Daft Punk feel. But in general, I think that that's what you're missing. You're missing that octave or those harmonics within that octave getting covered. So the lesson here I'm trying to teach you today, and I think I'm going to wrap this up relatively soon because we have the follow-up call to this on Patreon or on Discord coming up, is to try to simplify. Like rather than adding things on to add in harmonics you're missing or like layers that you feel like you need to add, it's better to just, you know, redo the sound so that it's filling up everything, you know. It's filling the harmonics that you need to. So I notice you have this, you know, tendency in this sound design here to have like very complex wave shapes. And often it's just better idea to just use the simple tried and true stuff. And then maybe, you know, for the more unique sounds that aren't your bread and butter, like your leads and stuff, you can go for more complex wave shapes that are a little bit more forgiving. But for something like a bass, you really need that fullness that like a saw or square or triangle or sine wave provides. Actually, a sine doesn't really provide that. It just provides one frequency, which is really good for like sub, but it's not really great for other basses. So anyway, I think that that's going to wrap up this Fix Your Project stream. We didn't work on this terribly long, but I think I at least got a point across that I think will make your bases stronger and something we can work on one-to-one as well. With that, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who tuned in today. I have a Patreon Discord meetup call for artists and other patrons and students of mine. That's coming up here at 2 o'clock, which is in 40 minutes. You can hop on Discord and join in the conversation with some of the other students and other artists. Zin, welcome to the chat. Good to see you, man. And yeah, if you want to join in on the conversation, I'm going to switch to this camera. If you want to join in on the conversation there, we're doing a little get-together on Discord after this for patrons. And you can tune in there just by going to patreon.com/JulianGray. You can pledge on there and then join in on the conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream today. We got through it without any sort of huge issues with sound and stuff. But, you know, there's always something that happens on these streams. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something today. Make sure to subscribe if you like this video. Make sure to like it if you enjoyed the stream. And I'll see you guys next month in next month's Fix Your Project stream. Go over to patreon.com/JulianGray for more information on how to submit your songs. I'm Julian of Julian Gray Media, and I will see you guys on Discord in 40. And for the rest of you watching this later, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.